the Adventures in Awakening show. I'm Tracy Spring, and this is the epic exploration of the depths of who you really are and the highest purpose of why you're here. So come along with us on an adventure in awakening. Hello and welcome, everyone. Today we have the most amazing guest, Dr. Reverend Christian Sorensen. And he is going to start off this interview with a blessing and a prayer.
Well, Tracy, as we join together here in consciousness, we know there truly is no separation in time or space. For truly within this mind of the divine, we become that place of the divine downloads. So knowing that we bring forth that which your viewers hunger to hear, and that truly that wonderful call has gone out, and that vibration is felt, the alarm has gone off. And I know right now that what we are communicating right now in this moment lives in a way that is delivered just in the moment for all that hear. So grateful to know it is God inspired. We go forth in this wonderful conversation, inspired in spirit, to bring forth that which is waiting to be heard when it is found. And so it is. Amen.
And so it is. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. What a beautiful way to start. Wonderful. Oh, well, that was Dr. Reverend Christian Sorensen that started us off with a beautiful prayer. And he is our wonderful guest today. Dr. Reverend Christian Sorensen, let me tell you a little bit about him. He is the eminent spiritual leader of the Seaside Center for Spiritual Living in Encinitas, California. That is where I met him. I was a member of his congregation for several years, and it was always so powerfully inspiring to go. And he was born in a spiritual family and has been a lifelong student of metaphysics. Both his father and mother were ordained into the ministry on the same day as Dr. Sorensen in 1985, the only triple family ordination in the history of the Center for Spiritual Living organization. I thought that was so fascinating. We'll have to hear more about that.
Okay.
He has not one, but 3 doctorate degrees, a degree in a doctorate of religious studies, of divinity, and of religious science. And Dr. Sorensen, or he likes to be called Reverend Christian, has authored 10 amazing books. His newest book, Living from the Mountaintop, Be the Mystic You Were Born to Be, was the winner of the LA Book Festival Award and is a profoundly awakening experience to read. I highly recommend his book. Raising global consciousness is of great importance to Reverend Christian. He has traveled all over the world, inspiring and uplifting groups from Tibet and India to North China and Africa. He has also helped orphanages and schools in Mexico and Africa through direct giving and hands-on building. He's also had the great honor of addressing the United Nations General Assembly. Reverend Christian is a gifted and eloquent speaker with a unique and engaging style. I can say from personal experience that he just lights up an audience with his expansive vision, passion, and heartfelt enthusiasm. And so thank you so much for being here today, Reverend Christian. It is such an honor to have you join us. I am such a big admirer of your work that you've done for so many years, and I feel so blessed that you're here with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Tracy, thank you for asking me. That was a lot of introduction you shared, and it's an honor to be with you. And we miss you down here in Southern California, in Encinitas.
I miss you too.
Tom lit up the place, and it was fun to be able to share classes and evenings with you guys. So I appreciate being asked to come and have a conversation in our living rooms.
Exactly. Isn't this convenient?
It
we
is.
can
It
have
is.
this interview right from our own space.
I like it.
So we're here to have the conversation about awakening, or other ways of putting it, enlightenment or mystical experiences, something beyond the material world. And I like to start these conversations with the quote by Pierre de Chardin, his famous quote that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And I wondered, what does that mean to you, Reverend Christian?
I love that quote. It's definitely one that expands the consciousness for sure that we are spiritual beings that are incarnating in this world, and so these are the vehicles we get to tool around this planet, this world, and what we are is so much more than the physical experience. We are this expanded state of awareness. I believe that we have multi points of awareness. In our linear mind, we get caught up in thinking, okay, this is what is going on, this one point that I am aware of now. But I think when we're living in that greater state of awareness, that we can have many points of awareness, that being aware of one locale doesn't eliminate our ability to be aware of other things. But the beauty of being incarnated in this human experience is that we can bring a full focus to this point in space and in time. And so truly we're spiritual beings that are just emerging in our physical form, in which we begin to live in this world that gives us the opportunity, I think, to slow things down a little bit so we can learn. And so that is why a state of awareness is imperative for the soul's evolution, is as we go through this denser reality and things are slowed down, it gives us the opportunity to take a look at the causative activities that we are engaged in to bring about for us an opportunity to awaken to our soul's evolution. So often people will live in an unconscious kind of way, just living in a reactive, very reactionary kind of reality. And so they're responding to what is going on and thinking what is going on is who they are and what is going on. But it is the physical reality, it is the human experience. And we forget sometimes that who we are is more than this density or this vibration, but rather we are that which causes this. And what is projected before us is a result of our consciousness or our awareness, and gives us like that Polaroid shot of seeing what's going on the inside. How am I integrating or engaging with what's taking place in my world? Am I giving my power away to what's out there? And so I watch people get caught up and think that they are the human experience. And so what the doctors come back into their life saying, hey, this is the prognosis and this is the linear unfoldment of where that's going. But at any moment, we can choose to be the causative factor of our life. And so this is what is going on the physical plane, but that's not who you are. That is not what you are bound by. And the epigenetics that is being talked about, people can change their DNA, they can change their being at the nuclear level. And so science is catching up with what the philosophers have talked about changing your thinking, change your life, because you're a spiritual being awakening to the reality of that in this world. It's not as if we get separated from it, but rather what we are is awakening to the greater aspect of our being. And this is how we have differentiated the infinite in this realm. And so without you, the infinite would be unexpressed. I mean, the infinite resides with infinite points of opportunities and possibilities, as Dr. Ernest Holmes talks about in his book, The Science of Mind. But we are the ones who get to choose which one of those possibilities is going to take form. And what happens is when we become unconscious, unawake, or unaware that we are traveling through this world, forgetting that we are at cause always in our life. That is a spiritual principle. And the thing about principles is they're always so. So that doesn't mean that it's not operating when we are experiencing lack, limitations, scarcity, difficulties, whatever grabs our place of concerns, it becomes our spiritual practice. It becomes the place where we have the opportunity to call for the greater possibilities in our life. But what has happened is, as we remain unawake or asleep, we forget who we are and think we are this human experience, not the spiritual incarnation that is having the experience in the here and now moment. So
Beautiful. And can you tell us about your journey of how you woke up to that? How did you start experiencing that for yourself?
Well, I was one of those strange kids that just kind of walked to the beat of a different drum. It's not so different now, but in my day and age, I was born and raised in Hollywood, and my parents were part of the whole esoteric movement, if you would. And so I was raised in a family that rather than playing cards on a Saturday night, we would use these, I don't know, psychic cards. I'm thinking this, and what is it that I'm thinking, and all of a sudden I began to recognize that's a very natural state to be able to know that you're looking at a card with a hourglass or a circle. And so I became, at an early age, rather than learning Spanish, which I would have liked to have learned that language, I learned another language, and that was the one of the vibrational realm, or the realm of thought. We would have people come to our homes when, I was 10 years old. I can remember Eunice Hurt, and she was this, I don't know if you would call it a medium, but she definitely operated on the other side of the veil and brought back such clarity and evidence of that which is beyond the physical, that at a young, impressionable age, I just took on this natural state of, this is the way it is. I can remember my grandmother one time, chronic back issues. And, it just, the chiropractors or the osteopaths, they couldn't heal it short of like spinal surgery. And one day my mom gave me a little prayer card and said, "Hey, go read this to your grandma." And I put my hand on her back and I read it, and boom, the next day she came back and gave me a buck and said, "Hey, Christian, you healed me." I thought, man, this is great,
Wow.
Grandma. You want anything else you want healed? I could do this. And my mom pulled me over real quick and said, "Hey, that money's not because you healed her. You don't do the healing. There's a spirit, there's a higher power, there's a life force that is being revealed in her wholeness." And so at an early age, I just knew through experience the reality of that which is a little finer vibration. So I was awakening in my childhood these kinds of experiences. I delivered my first Sunday message in front of a congregation at the age of 14. I remember it was a Father's Day,
Wow.
and they asked me, to do that. And so, but each step was an awakening to a newer level, a higher vibration of the possibilities of the infinite expressing as me. And so when I graduated uh, from high school, I went on to college, Cal State Northridge, and it just wasn't really I was majoring in business and drama, which actually works out really well for running a spiritual community. You got to know the business, you got to deal with boards, you got to be able to deliver on a Sunday morning. But it wasn't. There's just too many. I was not the individual expression. I wasn't being seen. I don't know what it was. So in 79, I took off to New Zealand to go surfing, never to return. And my mom was devastated. Her son was gone forever, last all of a couple months. So moms, if your teenager's leaving forever, hold on, it may not really be that long. But it was down there. I went to New Zealand to chase the waves, and I know your son was just got back from New
That's
Zealand, right? Wasn't
right.
he over there doing bike riding and
That's
things like that?
right. That's
That's
right.
good. But well, back in the 70s, late 70s, I guess would be, I went, and I was staying down at a youth hostel at Mount Cook. I was waiting
Mm.
for the storms to clear off the Tasman Glacier so I could go skiing. I was the only one in this youth hostel, and it was just being pelted by a storm. And only book I had with me was Ernest Holmes' book, This Thing Called You. And I can still remember going out on the mountainside and in a storm under this big rock, and I was sitting there meditating because, once again, that's what I grew up doing and knowing. And I'd been isolated now, for several days and by myself, and I'm sitting under that, and all of a sudden it's like, I don't say the light goes. It's like a train in a tunnel, and you see the light out there, or the end of the tunnel, and you see it, and it's getting closer, and as if I had stepped through to the other side of that. And all of a sudden I stepped out, and it was in that place. I was in a spiritual community, and I could see the lights shining, and the community, and I was in this spot, but it was as if there was Christian there 20 years outside later, and who was up there on that stage, and I was like, wow, it's like, how does that happen? I saw
Wow.
myself in that place,
Wow.
and I was like, well, how did I get there? And that older Christian, 20 years, later, or whatever, said to me, Christian, do what it is you love. Follow your joy, and you will get here. And it was like I got this message from this mature or adult Christian, and it stuck and it resonated deeply within me. And when I came back from that high place up there at Mount Cook, it was interesting. I'd been writing journals every day, but when I got to Mount Cook, I stopped writing because everything was so clear. I didn't need to write it down. It was so simplistic. I thought I would remember these revelations my whole life. And really, the only inkling I had of that consciousness, of that awakened consciousness, were the postcards I wrote up there that I had later sent out, that I was really probably what I, in retrospect, was living in a mystical state of being for several days, just one with it all, the storms, the weather.
Wow.
And so it's part of what inspired me to write that book, Living from the Mountaintop. But as soon as the storms clear, I couldn't get back quick enough back to LA, where there was a school of ministry, and both my parents had become religious science ministers. And so I got back in the late 70s, and I enrolled in that school of ministry. And crazy to think, a young person like that they would let into a school of ministry, but it became my path. I found the joy, I found the excitement. I wouldn't lay on hands, but I could do the healings. I could be in front of people. I could continue to deepen my spiritual process. I had taken the preliminary classes at 16, the foundation class, the consciousness studies practice. So I was ready to enter into that next level awakening, where the color gets brighter and clearer in the path. And it's not as if I haven't had a great deal of challenges and difficulties, but what blew me away was when Seaside purchased its new facility, and we spent it took us 4 years from the purchase date to build the place, to move into the place. And when I stepped out onto that stage for the first time, and it was 2001 in the fall, and I stepped out onto that stage, and the lights were coming down on me on that stage, and I was looking out into the audience, and it was as if it like faded into that light. The light just became what it was, like I was in that tunnel. And when I stepped through, I saw that young Christian who was talking and asking this older one, hey, how do I do that? And it was like I was there, but I was in like the two places at once. And so I had to, I was fully present in that. And the young Christian gave me the message. Here it is, the young guy giving the old guy a message that said, Christian, don't you ever lose that joy. Remember to keep following it on the path that opens up before you. And it's like, so that's what has stuck with me. You talk about an awakening. My life was changed from New Zealand in that moment in Encinitas, and the awakening is like you're on the next rung of the spiral. It's like the colors get brighter and clearer, and the minutia, the things that are not as significant, just don't. The density of this dimension does no longer impact the spiritual essence of the awakened soul. And so what I've come to discover is you can't stay up there on that mountaintop. I would have loved to have stayed there on Mount Cook forever, or where I wrote that book from. But you've got to remember, you got to come back into the world. What is it? The Cornfield's book, after the ecstasy, the laundry. You gotta come back into this place. I wrote I don't know, you can ask more questions, or I'll just keep talking. I got another story for you about
Oh,
that.
please. Yes,
Coming to,
please.
not mine, it's
Yes.
from, living from the mountaintop, as I take people through the different dimensions of their vibrational soul's evolution. Ultimately, it's making it to the mountaintop. It is merging with the light. But the story that I put towards the end of that just is a reminder, you have that awakened consciousness. And so there was this student who had worked in his monastery and working on developing its consciousness, and finally went to his master teacher and said, I think I am ready to go to that mountaintop. I am ready for the enlightenment. I am ready. And the teacher at this time looked at him and said, yeah, okay. And so the kid, he or she had packed up her stuff and started, heading up the mountain. And as we got higher and higher, the cliff became, steeper. The precipice was a little more scary to be looking over the sides, and he's tired and exhausted. And as he was going up, he saw this old man walking down with a big old pack over his shoulders. And he saw the guy coming down, and they came to each other. He said, "Old man, what what is enlightenment like? What is this awakened state of consciousness?" And the old guy, he took his pack and he put it down on the ground and kind of wiped his forehead. And in that moment, the kid got it, understood that it's just letting go of the load. It's letting go of the stuff that you are carrying.
Mm.
It is being free. Is being in that greater state. And so with excitement, the young guy started running up the mountain path to get to the top. And they said, yeah, but then what? And so he turned around and asked the old guy, then what? After that? And the old guy shrugged his shoulders and he picked up the pack and threw it back over his shoulder and just started his descent back on down the mountain. So you can't live on that mountaintop forever. But those that have never been have never seen. But those that have been to the top, have had the awakened consciousness, have seen. And so now, as they come back down, they can live their life from remembering what it is they had experienced in their world.
Beautiful, beautiful. I know that in your book, Living from the Mountaintop, there's a wonderful quote that I wanted to share with people.
Okay, good.
It's how you described a mystical experience. I thought it was so powerful. A
Oh,
mystical
good. Let me hear
experience.
that.
You
Let's
like
see.
this one? Okay, good.
I don't know.
A mystical experience can bring a joyous surge, thrills, electrifying waves of light pulsing, tingling elation and jubilation throughout the body. There's a heightening of your senses. Smells become acute, and your ability to hear becomes extraordinary. One might say even otherworldly. The music of the cosmos, the celestial choir, the hum of the divine, and the wisdom of the ages fills your soul, all in the time it takes to blink a mystical eye. So I thought that was quite an extraordinary passage there. And I thought if I could have you explain more about or share more about where did that come from? Tell us more about that experience that you had.
Yeah.
Do you remember
Well,
that?
it comes from taking the time and doing the spiritual practices to get there. Though you could probably take a quick trip with ayahuasca and get there real quickly and visit that mountaintop. But plant medicine is one of those ways, but it's not necessarily my way of getting there. What I do is I take time and I allocate time to be in that presence. I take the time to be with spirit. And not every time do I sit down, do I get that spot where, I I am able to just merge into the whole and into that one place. But it is that regular practice that allows me to be able to deal with the human experience that wants to captivate that egoistic mind that says, hey, think of me, think of me. What I've learned to be able to do is to be able to clear the tabletop a lot quicker now. I can begin to, when I sit down and say, hey, this is up, I got to take a look at it, but I'm done with that. And now I become more available. It's also taking time in extended periods. Last week, I spent 4 days at my ranch in Montana and just in the woods and the trees, and myself and my family stayed at home, and they sent me off. And there I was, the very little verbal communication. So what happens is once again, it's like fine tuning. You become more acute to what is always available. The multidimensional aspects of being are always there. The multiverse is always inviting you to play on whatever frequency you want to dance in. And what happens is I begin to recognize that no, not going here, not going here. And all of a sudden I begin to merge into the spot where there is a lot less, not this, not that, but yes to this and yes to that. And it is opening to that greater light way of being. One of the challenges that has come that can often plague individuals as they begin to ascend into those finer frequencies is that there are so many different frequencies that are bombarding them. And I listen to people say their inability to turn off the psychic impresses, the communications from here or there, the people talking there. And it's that inability to be able to quiet it all that generates the challenge and the busyness in mind. I've known people that are extremely intuitive, but part of the challenge is they see the full spectrum and 100 different possibilities from one scenario, and they don't know what is the reality or the spiritual truth of a situation, because they have seen all the different angles, which are all part of the totality of a moment, but they're not all that which is. Because what is true, which is the life affirming human experience in that moment, that is what it is we want to be able to move into that mystical state. And it's in that you get the revelations. And so you see the historic events that once were, that are now. You begin to hear color and see music, and it's like all of a sudden you've been dancing around the flame, but you jump into the flame, and it's total immersion. You begin to just explode in the light and the life and the glory of the divine, where there is no otherness, that you lose your differentiation, that you begin to be the experience of life itself. And it's not as if you're attempting to make anything happen, but rather you are the divine expression. You are the light. You are the happening. And so your egoistic experience is burned away, and what remains is that which has the multi-points of awareness of consciousness that is not bound to space and time in the human incarnation.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so what would you recommend to people to do for their daily spiritual practices, so that they can ground, into their physicality, so they can have these spiritual experiences and still be stabilized in their physical body?
Yeah, that grounding is really important. It's the integration, since we are operating in this world, and the integration so we can be aware in other worlds, in other opportunities of awareness. And so I believe taking time and just being, I think the Bible said lowly listening, being present to hear the revelations of that which is relevant for your expression now. There's prayer and there's meditation, and the prayer is directive, and the meditation is the reflective. It is being able to hear and to see. And I think it is the dance of being able to be immersed in the totality of it all, but to be able to articulate the intention in this vibrational realm So, and so you could call it prayer, the Wicca Society would call it a spell. It is how you choose to differentiate the infinite. But what happens is when you're living from the reactionary experience of life, oh no, I got to save myself or save this experience. I begin to recognize that there's a battle here and I need something bigger than what is the challenge or the concern. And you've lost then that mystical, because in that place of oneness, there is not the infinite and something else. There is not the wonderful wholeness of it all and Christian and my sense of concern. There is not wholeness and sickness. It is that human experience that people are having. And so that is what is going on. But as soon as I am trying to pull down the infinite to do battle on my behalf, I've lost my sense of oneness, because I believe that there's something on the outside. So I find that how do I develop this sense is I continually to sit down without agenda and allow myself to be available, to be lifted into a greater state of understanding and vibration and seeing and knowing. I want to see as spirit sees. I want to see, and I want to hear, and I want to know, not in my way, but in that way that is in all places at once. So I can see what is relevant for this moment in which I am in, and then my prayers or my affirmations or my declarations or my pronunciations of the divine here in this moment begins to come from that higher place as opposed to my limited thinking. I want to open myself to that which is greater than what I know. And so I believe it is the whole being that is that which connects. So the mind wants it defined through this part, where I find the wholeness is the totality of who I am. So when I have a revelational moment, my whole being knows something has just been known. And sometimes I cannot articulate it, but I know something has changed. When I came back from New Zealand, my life was different. What happened? I don't know, it doesn't really make sense, but I know that I was now operating on another frequency than what I had prior to that mystical moment that I was living in, that captivated the total essence of me. No human person to bounce it off. And so all I had to dance with that, which was beyond my definition of reality. And so what begins to happen is that as you play more in that frequency, you trust it more. You begin to have a deeper faith in its omnipresence, meaning it is not only there, it is here, and it's omniscience, it's all knowing. There is a way through whatever constriction I might be looking at, or what some expert might be telling me can or cannot be done. I have developed through consistency a deep knowingness that there is always an answer to whatever perplexes my human mind or body. And so it is that faith, it is that deep knowingness that cannot be shaken by a medical report or a limited portfolio or a broken relationship. It is okay. That is the human experience you were asking about. That is my human incarnation. But that's just a pinpoint of the expansiveness of that which I am, which is spirit expressing here and now. And as I choose to claim this as my reality, that begins to be my experience in this human experience.
Beautifully, beautifully expressed. And so, what is the purpose of taking on a human body, a human experience? What is the purpose of this? Why are we, squishing down our expansiveness of who we really are into this experience of this physical form? What is the purpose of that?
I feel, at least when I'm going around, this is my classroom. And as I shared, things are slowed down here. They're not necessarily happening at the speed of thought, which is pretty quick. It's slowed down so I can rethink and redirect what is beginning to take form in my experience. And so if all of a sudden I find myself in a situation that is less than comfortable, I recognize this becomes my spiritual practice. This is my soul curriculum. This is what is going on in my experience now, rather than denying it, rather than blaming it, rather than identifying and saying this is what it is or who it is or any of those things. I begin to say it's in my world and I'm participating with this. And in my participation, what kind of responsibility do I want to take? Do I want to awaken to a greater understanding of what is going on? And if my faith has led me to know that I'm no longer bound by the physical dimensions and the physical constrictions, then this experience, I don't need to give my power away, my fear to, my anxiety to, though they say you're never going to be able to fund this project, or, this relationship will never heal itself. Things may be moving in a different direction than I had been expecting. But if I have continued to speak my higher state of knowingness, or my prayer, what is showing up in my world is the answer to that. Now, I may need to change my level of knowingness. I may need to step into a greater state of being. A wonderful cliche out there. It's time to stop telling my God how big my problems are and start telling my problems how big my God is. It's time for me to begin to know that. And what I have found is that once I get something handled at this particular level, it seems to move up the spiral, and I come back to a similar experiences at a new dimensional level, at what seems to be a bigger opportunity. And the bigness and the greater challenge is in my field of awareness, is in my human experience, because there is no large or small in the infinite, because it's all, it's all of that. So I'm saying, boy, man, this one is a biggie. Rather than creating $1 million, I now need 10 million, or I need 100 million. I'm building something that's going to be, whatever numbers you want to work on. I remember my mom, who's a spiritual practitioner, working on literally $billion projects and holding that consciousness. And she would share with me, it's just not going to let my limitations get in the way. I am knowing that we're dealing with that which is infinite. And so the purpose, I think, of the human incarnation is to come to know ourselves so much more than the physical challenges that we have put on these earth suits to plunge into this realm, and we've got it to operate around, and it's beautiful. It can be scary, it can be dynamic, it could be all those things. And when we are done with this experience, like scuba diving, you head back up to the boat. You got to go get, and you ran out of oxygen here, and so you go back on up and you realize where you've been playing was wonderful. And you left your other friends who didn't run out of the oxygen as quickly as you did, and they didn't expect you to stay, and you sure couldn't have stayed, but you came on up to boat side. Now you can grab another tank and throw it on and come back, or you can stay up there and reflect. But that experience down there has taught you, has shown you, has been wonderful. You have played with wonderful diving mates, and you can rush back, or you can take your time, or you can move to another site. It's like, and so this body suit, this incarnation, is the appropriate the thing that we need to house this vibrational consciousness that is continuously at every moment of our life giving us the opportunity to validate our state of awareness and say, are you ready to move up that rung, have a greater awakening, to have a greater experience? It's all available to you.
And so once we do go back to the boat, I love that analogy, that's a great one, then we take with us any awakening experiences that we've had, right? The purpose of it is to come down here, is to learn and grow and evolve to different levels of our own awareness, and so then we get to higher and higher levels when we do go back to the boat? Is it something like that?
I feel that it absolutely is a lot like that. I think our soul work is what we continue to take with us in our in our consciousness. It's all, but not necessarily all the pieces of the experience are necessary to retain constantly grabbing in our field of awareness. I think all those pieces from life's experience are available, or what they call the Akashic records. I mean, you could go through that and tune into any experience or lifetime or whatever it is. It's all there. If that's the frequency you want to say, hey, why am I, stumbling right here? I can go back to any particulars, but I think it is the totality of a journey that gives us those soul qualities that will last as we continue to move on. I mean, and this isn't any new. You can read Plato's, I think it's in his Republic, the myth of Earth, of the soldier who died and then came back to life. But what he brought back, you're supposed to leave your memories on the other side of the river, and so he came back, but he forgot to leave it, and so he had all these memories of the previous lives. Now I'm having enough challenge trying to file away all these years of experience as I journey in this incarnation. If they were all being actively going in my mind and my head, it's like I just need to remember what time dinner is tonight, and was I supposed to bring home the groceries. And so I find it's a lot easier to be fully present in the moment, and it's in that moment, it is the totality of my soul's work that begins to play out for me and what I continue to carry. And so those deeper impactful moments in our life, the magnitude of them is what gives us those magnificent moments of significant quantum leaps in our soul's evolutionary journey. So the totality is the quality that I'm bringing from this lifetime's experience, and there are significant moments that will add to those lessons of love, of caring, of compassion, of being fully available and present, to be able to forgive with greater ease. I think it is the continuation of our life. There's no need to come back to this classroom, though you can. I mean, Plato said this guy came back here. We hear amazing stories, but you don't have to. See, it's at a choice. So often people think they get caught up in this karmic wheel, that I am bound to live out this karmic wheel. It's like, man, I'm going to get dizzy on that thing. At any moment, I can choose to step beyond that causative activity of that wheel that is spinning and say, I'm ready to move on with that one. I see it, I get it. I maybe do things differently, but I am not bound by what was. And I don't feel things are predestined, other than the total emergence with that spirit, where I am willing to let go of the differentiation. I think in our Western society, we're kind of caught up in our individuality to the point where we're all going to be like God and be a bunch of these mini gods running around, stirring it all up from God. I don't necessarily think that's the way. I think it is a total emergence into the totality of it all, where I'm willing to let go of that personification that has been known as Christian, and allow it to just be a contributor, that drop into the ocean. It becomes one with it all once again. So I think that's kind of what I think I'm doing in this incarnation is, yes, I'm bringing forth those greater qualities on my soul's evolution. And as I mentioned, it slows it down so I can become more aware, rather than moving so fast and not being able to make the adjustments and see how things play out in this slower dimension.
Beautiful. So you were really talking about that we are, on one level, we're individual souls that have, that Akashic record of every lifetime, everything we've been through, and we're progressing and evolving on that individual soul level, but ultimately we are that oneness, that wholeness, and we are working to move in the direction of joining again with the oneness. But we never left the oneness in the first place. We always have been that oneness, but it is like an epic journey of becoming an individualized soul from the oneness, and then evolving and evolving and evolving to wake up to realize, oh, I was the oneness all along. I thought I was an individual soul, but actually I was one soul, oneness. That's one way to see it. What do you think of that perspective? Does that resonate?
I think that is the paradoxical revelation of where it's at. You're right on. You know, that's beautiful. I remember as a kid, I don't know, it probably wasn't mercury, but it was like silver or something in your hand. It was like what was in thermometers. And you put it in your hand and it like break up into a bunch of little balls, and then it would like just naturally come back together into one big glob of that silver thing. It's like the light got shattered, and it's just naturally coming on back, and we're bringing our contribution back to the wonder of it all, and the infinite possibility always exists. And as you were saying, we're never apart from the oneness. Within the one, all the differences take place. And so for me, learning to trust the journey just eliminates the angst, the anxiety, the fear, those things that just not the healthy, calm, tranquil vibration of being. And even in the calm, tranquil, it doesn't mean you're short of the yang energy. I mean, there's great power from the centeredness. From the center earth comes the eruption. So but I think the frantic kind of vibration sometimes can impede the clarity in seeing a larger picture. And so, when that frantic energy is there, if it can be channeled and expressed in an appropriate way, if not neutralized, it's part of it. Kali, the goddess of creation and destruction. I mean, it's all part of it. And so it's not like one is good and one. It's just it's the journey that we're working on, and to know that life doesn't begin or end here, or begin or end with conception. It is. We didn't create it. We don't, and we can't destroy it. And so it is. It brings a sense of peace that allows us to walk this world without fear of what is beyond this veil.
Beautiful, beautiful. What would be the top things that you would tell our audience today that they can do in their own life as a daily spiritual practice for them to start to, awaken to this experience?
Mm-hmm. For me, taking time in the stillness is imperative. I don't miss it. Actually, at Seaside, the staff is required to stop at noon every day and come meditate with me and pray, and so that's something we do daily around Seaside. I start my mornings with that. I like to say I'm real spiritual with my tea. I go get a cup of coffee, actually. But that's, I guess, my Western approach. It awakens my mind. I found that when I used to wake up and just go in the early AM and go sit in my meditation corner and light my candle, I'd go right to sleep. So the coffee helps me stay a little bit more Zen, I guess. And I also think it's important to take care of your body. Your body is, we are this spiritual being having this incarnation as the human experience. And, this is our vehicle. So we want to, honor and take care of it the best we can. I would suggest to get one of yours and Tom's books on eating live food. I mean, that, I remember in your class project, you took us all through on how to cook. I think this body of ours is a living organism, that we're in partnership with it, and it will take the direction of the consciousness that is animating it, but you give it a better shot at doing that if you are honoring it. So to exercise, to rest right, and to eat the way in which you educate people. I know you've come out with with a new book about, this, the 7 stages of discovery, who I am and who I'm not. And so anything you can do. And when something comes up, I think it's important to say, why is this showing up in my life? And when you do your spiritual practices, which is taking time for reflection and contemplative inward exploration, you're able to naturally, you don't get behind the ball and things don't begin to build up. So when something comes up, because we're doing this earth journey, things come up. We're in this collective soup of humanity. And, there are things for us to do. And, some are meant to pray all the time. There are others that are part of the warrior class. What is it that is mine to do? And I don't judge that which is other people's to do. And I believe that humanity is continuously, from the beginning of time, risen to whatever that is necessary to allow us to continue to move forward. And we're at a time where it's taking all hands on deck. We are contributors to the direction humanity is going and what is ours to do at this time. And like I said, some it's to pray, some it's to take care of the family, others it's to go out there on the front lines. But it's all of us that is moving things forward, as well as those that are bringing some of the dark energy that calls for the greater light energy. And what I know is that always things have progressed in a life affirming kind of way, even though it may look like challenges. And if I can sit with a deeper knowingness that all is well now, not that it's going to be, but now. And so I am not going to give in to the darker stories, though I'm not going to deny that they're going on. I mean, there's some things that are taking place that are not acceptable. And is it mine to do the fight, or is it mine to hold a higher place? And what do I find that is mine to do, that brings me joy, that honors my soul and my journey in this, my soul's journey at this time? That is what I will do this day, this moment, knowing that it supports a greater call that is pulling me forward. So
Beautiful. And as you're talking about all the things going on in the world at this time, there seems to be a lot more, I don't know, the chaos or negativity that seems to be
opportunities
expressing
to bring
opportunities.
forth,
Right, good. I would love to hear
spirit
your
into the
perspective
world.
on that. Say that again.
Yes. Yeah, no, to bring forth their opportunities, bring forth spirit into this world. You're being called to see that higher vibration, that divine presence, not that anthropomorphic something outside of ourselves. Hey, help me, but rather it is mine to do what is mine to do. And I will do it because I am part of the totality of it all. And I am going to contribute that which is mine to do. And what I know is mine to do is not to support the darkness and say I need a bigger power, but rather to recognize there is one power, there is one life force, there is one creative impulse behind it all. And I am going to side and ride that wave. I'm going to choose to drop into that energetic expression and to be the speaker of that. There's always been those who have spoken the doom and the gloom, and there are always going to be the opportunities to bring the light. And I am going to choose to be a bringer of the light in the darkest of times as well as the brightest of times. It doesn't matter what times. This is who I am being in my expression at this time. And I trust that I will help lift people to that greater sense of trust and faith in joy, that infallible sign of the presence of God that Hilde Chardin shared with us.
Beautiful, beautiful. So inspiring. And so what would do you have any last tidbits of wisdom or little bits of knowledge that you'd like to share with everyone today to end our conversation?
I think that was pretty good. Take the time to be with the presence. That's the best way, because if your mind is filled with the stuff of this world, you're crowding out the greater possibilities. So create the space for the revelation to be seen. Enter into that field of greater possibilities wherever you are, as Rumi would say. It's the entry point. It's the entry point into that greater spiritual understanding, the divine as you now, wherever you are, whatever is going on, the omnipresent, the totality of it all is yours. Not going to be, it's yours now. And the only thing that is denying it is sitting in your underwear.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Well, Reverend Christian, thank you so much for being here today. What an extraordinary conversation today. It is such a joy that you came and joined us. And your perspective is just so unique and so expanded that it's just an amazing thing to have this conversation with you. And it's such a blessing that you shared that with us today. So thank you so
It's
much
been
for
joy.
being here.
And lots of love to you and Tom. Continued success on your book projects as well as your podcast. It's been a joy being with you. I love you.
Love you too. Thank you so much. For more information about Reverend Christian and all of his programs, go to his website, seasidecenter.org. Thank you for joining us for the Adventures in Awakening show. For more information, go to our website, adventuresinawakeningacademy.org. I'm Tresiah Spring, and wishing you a glorious day.